Still have everybody? All right. So I'm just preheating the pan. Nothing too special just yet. You'll also need for this step a spatula and a high temperature oil. Canola oil would work fine, but what I've recently discovered is avocado oil. It's a little bit more processed, but it has a high smoke point of like 500 degrees. So hopefully you'll smoke up your house a little bit less. Just brush it on, or you can just drop a little bit in. You don't want too much oil because then your bread starts looking kind of too fried, if you will. Have a plate ready to catch your bread when you're done, and be on our way. If you're fortunate, as I'm fortunate, you might have a nice non-contact thermometer that goes all the way up high enough to determine if you've reached 450 degrees. If not, I'll show you a little trick for that. $300. I'm glad avocado oil is your favorite.
It's so good for cooking steak because it has such a high temperature.
Sorry, my sound was turned off. Can you say that again?
It's so good for cooking steak because it has such a high smoke point.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a pretty fantastic fat for high temperature things. The oil that I used on the bread itself, though, is olive oil this time, but you can certainly use other things if you like their flavor. All right, we're up to past 400. So one of the ways that you can tell if your pan is up to temperature is you can just take a couple drops of water and splash it in the pan. If it forms little beads and stays in place and sizzles like mad, you're in the right spot. If it skitters around a little bit, you're not quite there. Well, that looked good to me, but just to confirm, we're 475. So in goes the pita. Just kind of lay it in away from you so that you don't splash anything on yourself. Again, there's not a lot of oil here, so hopefully you don't have enough for that to really be a problem. So we essentially just wait about 20 to 30 seconds. You should see little bubbles forming on the top surface of your pita, kind of like you were cooking pancakes, but not quite as densely. You can kind of see a bumpy appearance start to emerge. Once you try this recipe at home yourself, you'll kind of see what that looks like.
Should you hear the bread sizzle?
Yep. You should be able to hear the bread sizzle a little bit. It's not going to have too much color at this point. It could have more, it could have a little bit less. But remember, we're just trying to make it seared on the outside a little bit as we get going. The other thing I'm going to advise you of is pitas, like pretty much everything that you put in the pan, is subject to the first pancake law. So the first one usually doesn't turn out fantastic, but we're going to see what we can do. The temperatures aren't quite even, the timings aren't quite right. You're still getting used to your equipment. Maybe there's too much oil, maybe there's not enough. Something about the first pancake just never quite works out, does it? And again, if all you're trying to do is make a bread to, say, dip into a curry or something, this recipe works really well for that. You just leave it in there and leave it for longer. If you do leave it too long, what happens is the middle of the bread cooks through. So there's not enough soft, uncooked dough to form the pocket, which may be the case here. First pancake. Oh, there we go. Bread is magic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what full inflation looks like. You get a nice, big, pillowy looking thing, and when that cools down, you're gonna have a nice place to put things like hummus, grilled meats, fresh salads and salsas, all kinds of stuff. And just pull that off to a plate. Use your spatula to kind of bring more oil to the middle. If you need more than that, you can drop in a little bit, brush it. If you have a brush, if not, you can use a paper towel or something. Let's look at that again. Back to side A. Okay, so what you just saw was it started to rise and then it kind of pulled back a little bit. What's going on is there's probably a little pinhole in the edge of the dough that formed. Um, so you can try pressing on the edge where the bubble was forming. That's usually where the hole is. Otherwise, if you see a jet of steam anywhere, you might be able to counter it by pressing there. There's a little pinhole right in the middle. The worst place to get one. That's basically the one you can't fix. But these breads still work great as sort of a really fluffy, soft taco shell. Um, they also work great with just a little bit of cheese melted over top. Do not be discouraged. Unless you really, really burn your bread, you're always going to end up with something that's edible. All right, and I'm going to try and roll out another one.
If you make a bunch of bread, will it stay good in the fridge or on the counter, and how long will it stay good?
Sorry?
If you make a bunch of bread, will it stay good on the counter or in the fridge, and can it last?
Yeah, so I would say that it could last at room temperature. Just once it's cooled down, put it in a Ziploc bag, and it should stay fresh for maybe 3 days on the counter. If you need longer than that, you should probably refrigerate it. If you're not sure when you're gonna get around to eating it, like you've done a marathon session, you've made like 30 pieces of bread, it freezes great, and it'll either defrost in your toaster oven or on the countertop where you can reheat it afterwards. One caution about pitas, though, if you do put them in something like a toaster or a toaster oven, if your pockets are like fabulous and perfect, they can actually puff up again inside of your heating device. So do be careful of that. They can scorch themselves on the elements if you aren't paying attention. Good question. Sourdough breads seem to have just a little bit more resilience at room temperature, probably just because their pH is a little bit lower. So you could probably have those last not quite a week at room temperature if they're properly handled. You do need to make sure that these cool all the way down before you put them into either a box or a Ziploc bag or something. Otherwise, you can get condensation to form on the inside, and that can create mold before those days are over. So do be careful of that. Any other questions? I can't really see chat at the moment while I'm cooking with the way I've got my camera set up.
There's none in chat.
Thank you. This does get a little bit smoky, so you may have to turn on a fan or crack a window. I think that would probably drive you guys crazy, so I'm just going to tough through it. Yeah, please cook responsibly.
If you were to incorporate an ingredient in the pita dough, what would you recommend? Like, garlic or chives or anything like that?
The way I would work with those is actually works out really great for things like naan. Is if you melt some butter and infuse your herbs or spices into that, and then brush it on after you finish cooking. Some of those things, if you add it to the bread, could compromise that skin that you form. So if they're like really finely ground spices, you might be able to get away with it. But you do have to be careful with that because this is such a high heat cooking. You don't want things that'll contribute to burning or that'll affect the ability to make that pocket if that's what you're after. If you don't care about the pocket, by all means, mix in those things as you but make sure that they're very small. So things like diced up cooked vegetables might not work so well. But if you had things like dehydrated onion. That might be a good thing to add before cooking. Just you may not be able to get as nice a pocket. Good question.
What would happen if you fried your oil in like a 1/4 inch of oil?
Pardon me?
What would happen if you fried your bread in a 1/4 inch of oil?
I'm not actually sure. I've never tried, but you would get excellent conductivity. You probably wouldn't be reaching the high temperatures that I am. Like I'm exceeding the smoke point here slightly at the avocado oil. But if you were to deep fry these, I think you could get potentially like a nice round ball. There's actually a couple of street foods that are kind of like that in parts of Southeast Asia and India, where they'll take a moist dough, throw that into usually a rounded dish of frying oil, and then using the back of a large ladle, press it around to make a really nice skin on the outside, and then it'll start to puff up because of all the steam that's being made, just like these. But I've never tried it personally. Your mileage may vary, but do you remember when you're frying to be extra careful of handling things that are kind of wet? Yeah. If you're having kind of tough luck with your bread and it's only like puffing up on one side, a way to get around that is potentially to take a balled up tea towel or a paper towel and press down on the part that isn't inflating. It's possible that you're just not generating enough steam. If you don't want to press down with your hand, you can use the round edge of a silicone spatula like I have here. That can sometimes help with the puffing process. And yeah, this bread will conclude the dough that I have ready for making into bread. Looks like we're doing okay on time. Um, uh, this recipe also works well with sourdough. It does take a little bit longer. I have a recipe for that as well on the class handout you can find on latest Google Slides presentation. It's actually kind of interesting that you can convert a lot of recipes into using sourdough if they would normally call for commercial yeast. I sort of have a theory going that you can basically pull out part of the flour, the water, and potentially even some of the sugar, and replace that with straight sourdough starter, um, and that works out pretty well. Keeping sourdoughs is kind of a fun subject that I could also go into. I have a couple of my experiences in that handout as well with how to get a starter going. And of course, you can reach out to me on Facebook or through email. And I can help you with any problems that you have otherwise. When you're done cooking in your cast iron, make sure to move it off of heat. If you are cursed with an electric burner like I am, you might recall that it stays hot even after you turn it off. So do take good care of your cast iron so it can keep taking care of you. Flip this around. All right, and that essentially concludes the demo part of my class. If you guys have any questions about anything that I can help you out with, please put them in chat or voice them. Ta-da.
You made it so easy, Maynard. Like I can't
It
have
is
any.
actually a really easy bread.
You made it. It was a perfect tutorial. I can't have any questions if it's a perfect tutorial.
You can say like, why pita?
Okay, let's preface that then. Why pita, Maynard?
Why pita? Well, glad you asked. You might happen to know that I'm really into period techniques and preparations. Hence our proclivity for silly hats and such. Yeah, it's a bread that's old as heck. It's really versatile. You can change out the flour. You can get a different product that way. You can add things to it. Like if you're going for an Indian direction, my family loves to do curries and things all the time. We will sometimes substitute like a quarter cup of the water with yogurt. You can do things like that to change the overall flavor of the bread and make it more suitable for something else. If you use only bread flour and you add maybe 4 tablespoons of olive oil proportionally, you can make a decent pizza crust. All sorts of cool things like that. So it's a great starter bread. And as I've just demonstrated, like if you don't burn it to heck, you have bread at the end, even if it doesn't have a pocket. You can do all sorts of creative things with it. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door with making bread if you've never made bread before. I hear a lot of people are doing that lately. Any other excellent questions? How bread? We just answered that.
You got some questions in chat.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Let's see. When reheating cold pita bread, what is the best temperature? I don't mind eating it at room temperature, honestly. You can put it back in the skillet for just a couple seconds to toast it. We like to put it in the toaster oven just for maybe 2-3 minutes on whatever medium toaster is, just to kind of get it warmed up so it's a little bit more pliable. Then you can cut it in half and fill it with all sorts of different things. Olives, cucumbers, tomatoes, stuff like that make a great lunch. But tuna salad, you can do anything. Like sky's the limit. It's true. It's not like a sliceable sandwich loaf. Maybe we'll get into that in a future class. But it's pretty versatile. You can tear it apart, dip it in things. You can turn it into pizza. You can just snack on it. Of course, it's great with hummus. Yeah.
What's your favorite main dish or whatever to have with the pita bread?
I like variety, so we do all sorts of different things with it. Like I've said, if we just need a quick snack, you can take it and just tear it apart and eat it with butter, peanut butter, hummus, bab ganoush. You could even eat it with like tomato sauce. Like it's anything you would use bread for, really. makes a nice, soft, pliable bread. I mean, bread. It has pockets. You can fill pockets with things. Um, uh, lately, let's see. I think the last thing we did with it was, let's see. I made kebabs. Oh no, it's actually more recent than that. One night I had made kebabs over the grill with chicken, marinated in some lemon juice, pepper, salt, and then some grilled vegetables. Like we've got some zucchini coming in, we've got tomatoes, um, got cucumber. Let's see, we did some peppers and onions on the grill too. Made a little yogurt sauce, ate it that way. But the day after was actually even better. I had some leftover ground beef from some other recipe, and I mixed that with a bunch of cumin and oregano, and made sort of a. It wasn't quite kofta, but it made a pretty nice savory kind of uncased sausage with the beef, and that with some yogurt sauce was done. Let's see. Don't have access to an oven, so it's useful. Awesome. Yeah. Don't have access to an oven. This is a great way to make yourself a bread-like product that isn't pancakes. Like it takes about the same skill as making pancakes, but you can, I think, eat this in a lot more various ways, and it lends itself so well to savory or sweet. Let's see. Ooh, beet hummus. Yeah. Grew some beets too this year, so maybe I'll have to try that. We've primarily been pickling them and roasting them. So the pickled beets would go well in a pocket as well. Any other questions about this or other bread? Camping, yeah. I have toyed with the idea of doing this at an event. Yeah, I think it would be possible with a dedicated set of kitchen helpers and large grill with or without a griddle. When I did the chicken just on a whim, I decided, hey, I should try doing this on the grill because a lot of subcontinental Indian cooks at home do this directly over gas burners. I mean, it really delivers a whole lot of heat really, really fast. So once you sear it off, you can just put the whole thing directly down on a burner and it puffs up like crazy. That's actually where I learned the trick where you press down on the bread if it's not inflating. Everybody should go watch YouTube videos of people making roti. It's amazing. Let's see. Yeah, we could totally make kebabs or basically any outdoor cooked meat. I think would really lend itself to this bread. It definitely takes more work than say like doing minute rice or something for an event on the scale of hundreds. Dozens? Yeah, I could see doing that. Yeah, so I hope that this recipe finds you well and maybe inspired to try cooking more at home, particularly when it comes to carbs. It's kind of surprising that we don't cook more bread at home, at least in America. It's kind of an uncommon thing to do much bread making. We're really big on cakes, quick foods, fancier things, steaks and stuff. But bread will take care of you. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. I'll try and hang out on the Discord for a little bit while I clean up all this bread making stuff to answer any questions there.
Great, thank you, Brother Maynard. I'm gonna stop the
Thanks for having me.
recording. Okay, that was our last class for today.
Yes,
We have 11 hours
that's amazing.
of classes tomorrow.
Wow. Tomorrow, how many classes do we have today? We've been,
Today we had it since noon, so we had 9 hours today, and we had a 2 and 7 hours yesterday. We have 24 classes in all, I think.
that is awesome, guys.
That is massive.
We have a day's worth of content that we've created. Wow.
Yep, all the way on my computer.
Thank you so much for hosting this.
Oh, yeah.
It's been really fun to tag along. Kind of